Hello everyone, I am Rod and I am the game design instructor for the Academy of Entertainment Arts over at Dixie Hollands High School. If you are one of my students, it's Mr. Flowers to you, and welcome to this video tutorial. Alright, so now we are ready to begin animating our scene. If you are currently looking through your renderable camera, you probably have this view. We don't want to move our render camera, so let's go ahead, go up to Panels, Perspective, and jump back into our perspective view just to make sure we're not going to mess up the recording camera that we set up. Now while I'm in here, I want to make sure the few things are in place before we start animating. I want to make sure that we have our curtain, that we have our little curtain skirt, this little guy. So if I go over to my little curtain down here, toggle on and on little curtain skirt, you can see that if I turn my curtain off and turn the little curtain skirt on, you can see that there, because we want this to be here in our scene, and we will want our curtain to be there. If you forgot to make this, go ahead and stop this, go back to one of the previous videos and see how to make this before we go ahead. Alright, so the first thing we want to do is we want to get all of our timing set up so that everything animates together. If we animate Eggy right now, we might run into some situations where he's passing through the curtain at the wrong time or whichever, and there might be some issues. So it's a lot easier if we set up the curtain and the door animation first and then animate our adorable little egg here. So I'm going to jump down into my little Photoshop so I can look at my storyboards. And the reason I have these here is so that I can figure out about how long everything takes. So I know the entire scene is going to take about 10 seconds, but I want to see about how long it takes before the curtain actually opens. So the scene's actually running 1 second before the curtain even starts to open. And then the curtain opens over a period of about 2.5 seconds. I'm actually going to round this down to 2 seconds, but it takes about 2 seconds for the curtain to open. Okay, so let's jump down into our scene here. And before we start dropping in keyframes and animating anything, let's take a look at our slider, our little timeline. Remember, it's going to take 10 seconds of recording time for this thing to go from curtain opening, Eggy jumping, to the time that it stops. So that's going to be a total of 10 seconds. Okay? So I want to make sure that we have our frame rate set up as well. We should be recording in 24 frames a second. So let's go up to Windows, go down to Settings, Preferences, and hit Preferences. Come down to Settings, and you should see Time, Film, 24 FPS, or frames per second. Make sure that this is selected, and then hit Save. Now that we have the correct frame rate, let's make sure that we have the correct amount of time on our time slider. Remember, we want to be 10 seconds. So 24 frames a second, so 24 times 10 is 240. So right here on this particular part on our timeline, we should have 240 typed in. Our minimum frame is 1. Our maximum frame should be 240. Alright, we can begin animating our scene. First things first, I want to take note where Eggy is eventually going to be. So down here on my little notepad, I already wrote down that at the end of the animation, at my last frame, I know that Eggy will be at a translation Y, 61, that's how high he is, and a translation Z, that's how far forward in the scene he is, at 172. So if I select him, bring up my moving widget, you can see that's where he's going to be. So I just wrote that down because I will eventually move Eggy off, and I want him to be set up. So this is kind of a note for me. And we can start with we'll start with our curtain. So let me get into position here. And remember, our curtain's going to be animated through our wonderful little handle here. So I'm going to grab my handle, and I'm going to come down to my curtain control. So control right and left. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to set these so that they are keyframed and ready to go. So we know that 1 second goes by before anything happens. So I'm going to just go ahead and drag my little time slider down. And I'm going to bring this down to 24 frames. So 1 second is 24 frames. So I'm going to go to frame 24. And you can see that we have 0, or we have 1 all the way through 24. And 1 second is going to elapse before our curtains open. So at frame 24, we know our curtains are going to be closed. So I'm going to select my curtains. So you can just drag and select both of those. I'm going to right click. I'm going to go to key selected. I don't have to key anything before this time because the curtains don't do anything before this time. But at the time of 1 second, the curtains are going to start doing something. So it's fine to key them right here because Maya says, okay, well, this is where they're going to begin doing something. So right there. And I know the curtains are going to open over a period of 2 seconds. So 24 plus 2 seconds, 24 plus 2 seconds. So 2 seconds would be 48 frames. So 48, and that makes 72. So I'm going to drag my time slider up. And if you don't want to try to drag your slider to 72, you can go over to this little slider window here and just type in 72 and hit it, and it'll bring you right to it. So if I'm like over there, I type in 72, it'll jump right to that frame. So I know at frame 72, my curtains will be all the way open. So I'm going to have my handle, I'm going to come up to my curtains, and we said that all the way open is a value of 10. So I'm going to change the value to 10. And then I will select both of these, right click, key selected. Avoid using the S key, and the reason I say that is the S key records extra frames and stuff, extra attribute values that we don't need, and it's just kind of garbage in the scene. It's data that is being stored for no reason, and it slows everything down. If you have used your S keys, for example, if I go back to 24 and I just hit the S key, you can see it records everything. And then I'll jump back to frame 72. I'll hit the S key again, and it'll record everything. If you've done this, don't panic. There's a quick way to clean these up. If we go up to our Edit button and come down to Delete by Type, there's an option to delete static channels, and what this will do is it'll remove any attribute that has been recorded on the timeline that is not actually changing, and we can test that. So if I drag my time slider, you can see the only two values changing are my curtain control left and right. Those are the only two values that are making a difference. Okay, nothing else changes. So that means all these other channels are static. So if I go up to here, go to Edit, Delete by Type, Static Channels, Maya is going to take a look at that animation curve and remove everything that's not changing. And there we have it. It cleaned up everything for us, and it's really handy in case you've accidentally hit a button that you don't want and you don't know how to undo it. There you go. So we have at frame 24, our curtains are closed, and at frame 72, our curtains are open. And if we go ahead and drag our time slider all the way out to 240 frames, go ahead and hit play, you'll see that it takes 2 seconds to open. So we have the 1 second pause, 2 seconds. So a total of 3 seconds happen before the curtains are all the way open. And that's all right. Now, at frame 72, our door is going to pop open. So I'm going to go ahead and grab my little guy here. So at this point, Eggy is going to be behind the door, and the door is going to be closed. If I jump back into my storyboards, I can see that about 2.5 seconds have passed, and then at about at about 2.5, the door is going to kick open. Bam. And then Eggy's going to wait for about a second. So let me go back to Maya. So at 72, my door is closed. So I'm going to go over to my controller for my door, and that's going to be at 0 at position 72. Remember, we are recording a change in time, and then we're going to record a change in value. So our time will drive our value. Door open. We're going to right click, key selected. That's going to be 0 at 72. and then we said about half a second is going to go by, and then the door is going to pop open. So 72, half a second is 12 frames. So that would be, what, 94? Sorry, 84. So at 84, I'm going to come over to my door, and I'm going to have that end up popping open. But it's not going to be open. It's not going to open gradually. It's going to kind of fling open. So the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to say at 84, it's still closed. So I'm going to key it. So at 84, the door is still closed. And then at 86, it's going to be open. So I'm going to have it fling open just in a couple frames. So 86, I'm going to put this at 10. Right click, key selected. So this should be, it should go from closed and then bam. So let's hit play. And if that's too sudden for you, you can just grab this frame here at 86. You can right click, you can do a cut. And let's say we want this to take a couple more frames. I'm going to move to frame 88, and I'll hit paste. Paste, and then paste. So now it opens quick, but it's not too quick. Bam. All right. So that's all we really need to do for setting up the curtain and the door. In the next video, we're going to animate our wonderful little egg here and get him going. Okay? I will see you next time.